Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 95, Nacua Matata. I'm John, and joining me as always is Andy. Andy, how's it going, mate?
I'm great, thanks, mate. How are you?
I'm not bad, not bad. Obviously, it's apparent to everybody that I have returned to the UK, much to everyone's delight. Everyone was hoping I wasn't going to be coming back, but we'll get into that later. We're here tonight, folks. Due to me being away last week, we were unable to get a podcast out. So tonight, the plan is to go over weeks 1 and 2 of the regular season, how we think the team has started off. There's been some updates for the team and some news to cover as well as we'll look elsewhere in the league and have a wee touch upon predictions and fantasy football. So first and foremost, going into the week 1 of the season, going away to the Seahawks, everyone was expecting a loss, but surprise, the Rams pull it back. Andy, what was your initial thoughts on a very 13 win against the Seahawks?
I thought, honestly, offensively, Stafford looked like a, top 5 to 10 quarterback. He looked healthy, he looked good to go. The offensive line looked massively improved from last year. Defense was, a few ticky-tacky things, but overall I thought played reasonably well. Obviously, the breakout of Nacua and Atwell, it was kind of like out of nowhere. And obviously, Kyron Williams as well, played pretty well for us. So, I must admit it was a shock win, to be honest. I was at it down as a loss for us. And, we came out comfortably with the win. And, we really looked like, to be honest, the Rams that we were a few years ago.
Yeah. Touching on what you said about Stafford. Stafford looked more like himself in his first season for us. It looked like he's healthy again, and it was kind of fun. And there's obviously we're missing Cooper Kupp, whatnot, but we'll touch upon him later because we don't want to kind of go too in depth right now. But obviously, Puka Nacua just kind of came out the traps. But I mean, overall, I had it down for a loss as well. And looking at our predictions, we got, I think, a good 80% of people who responded to our predictions call out said that they were expecting a loss as well. So for us to come out in top 30 to 13, was a total shock to myself. We talked about it in at the kind of the preseason roundup episode that the defense had us worried to the point that we felt that the only way we could win any games was essentially to mimic what happened against the Chiefs on Monday Night Football, high-scoring games, because the defence was going to give up a lot of points. And surprisingly, they only gave up 13 on the day. What's your thoughts on the defensive performance from that game, Andy? Like, I know you've said countless times, like going into kind of from last season to the off season to pre-season there, like you expected very little from defense. Anyone in particular who stood out from you that you wouldn't have expected to stand out?
Yeah, to be honest, Kobe Turner sort of stood out for me as sort of, a really good player for us. He did well for us. Byron Young as well, getting in on a bit of the action, So there's a few players who've kind of surprised me. Ernest Jones has looked fairly decent for us as well in that middle of the field. He seems to have grown up another year and is looking pretty well. So, there's a few sparks in amongst it. I think one surprising thing that shocked me is that we've not seen Johnny Johnson out there at all. So, is that a good sign that, Yeast and co have sort of nailed down those positions and are keeping him out? Or is this more a case of, a bit of stubbornness from Morris that he wants to play his guys over anyone else? But, the fact that he's keeping guys like that at bay, is quite a nice little thing to see at the moment. And hopefully it continues.
Yep. Just on Ernest Jones, he led us in tackling 4 solos and 5 assists from it, and 3 of them were tackles for losses. Elsewhere, like we had, like you said, Byron Young you mentioned as well. He got half a sack, 3 for 1. AD was 1 for 2, half a sack. Michael Hoyt, because I've got his name nailed down now, 1 for 2, half a sack. And then Kobe Turner, as you mentioned, he was of 0-2 and half a sack as well. The Akello Witherspoon got mentioned quite a few times post game to have been a bit of a surprise. Not that he had like, an amazing performance, but I think it was highlighted purely because the baby Metcalf was kind of on his case from basically from the start, and it was Witherspoon that he had the kind of dirty hit on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Witherspoon that he had the dirty hit on, and then the Taunton, that he should have been ejected for that hit. How the hell he got away with that, I don't know. I thought that was even something that, New York was supposed to be able to call down to the referees and look at the replay and go, yeah, guys, you need to get him out of there. That should have been something that they should have dealt with there and then and kicked him off. But, I don't think Witherspoon has come in. He's never going to be a Jalen Ramsey-esque player. There's no way to. But he has come in and he's looked solid, decent. And to be honest, in the first 2 weeks of the season so far, teams aren't really targeting against him. That they're picking on Kendrick and they're kind of leaving Witherspoon out on his own. Now, whether that's because we're trying to line Kendrick up with the number 1 receivers and he's getting the number 2s and 3s, or whether, teams are offensively planning and going, yeah, he's slightly better. We're just going to ignore that side. We'll just keep targeting what they perceive as potentially our weak link, but he's been steady. He's been solid. Like I say, he's nothing special, but he's just getting his job done. And, on the whole, for me, if he's not getting his name highlighted like Kendrick has a few times for a DB, it's one of them, you're kind of doing your job because you're not getting bait, you're not getting highlighted for all these big plays that are going on. And I think at the moment in our secondary, we need that experienced head to just basically just do his job and not look solid, which is what he's done so far. And hopefully it can continue for the guy.
The other thing for me also is like up front we got quite a good bit of pressure on Geno Smith, most notably the one where AD's come and run him like a freight train, and you can clearly hear Geno say on the audio, "Oh my god," and he just throws the ball away. I mean, like, for me, there's two good things about that. Firstly, that AD's getting those pressures, but also actually hearing the fear from another quarterback of seeing Aaron Donald come and running at you. Like, it gave me great pleasure.
In fairness, if I had Aaron Donald running at me, there'd probably be a brown stain as I'm running down the flipping field the other way, trying to get away from him. So don't worry about it.
Absolutely.
I can understand the sentiment, but again, AD's getting double, triple teamed constantly, and we're hoping that other players can step up a little bit more and on the one-on-ones and be able to deal with it. But you're clearly seeing it in the past 2 games now. They are literally just triple teaming the guy out the field.
Yeah,
just trying to stop it,
neutralise him. Yep. Flipping over to the offense, we kind of briefly mentioned about Stafford looking more kind of like himself. Didn't throw a touchdown or an interception on the day. He was 24 for 38 and 334 yards. Looking at how he spread the ball around, so obviously we're going to know Cooper Kupp for at least the first 4 weeks of the season. Puka Nacua was actually his, highest receiver. He was targeted 8 times, had 6 receptions, so he had a higher percentage, which beats him over Nacua with 119 yards. Nacua also had 119 yards. Higbee 49 off 3 catches. Van Jefferson 24-4. Bryce Hopkins 21 off of 1. And Kyron Williams was 2 yards, and Venisco didn't register a yard. So in terms of the kind of receiving core, Tutu Atwell being a leading receiver in week 1 is a bit of a surprise, isn't it? Particularly given that he's been, over the last couple of years, he's been a player that's been kind of a hot topic purely because, he was a high draft pick. Well, high for us. I mean, so what's your initial impressions of Tutu's start to the season?
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised that I'm happy that he's finally it seems to be. I'm not going to say he's put it together. It feels to me more like McVay this offseason has sort of got his mojo back and looked at the offense and gone, okay, these are the pieces I've got. How can I work these guys in so they're successful? And he's doing that a lot now with that. Well, he's doing a lot of pre-snap motion with him. He's getting him sort of hidden behind tight ends and other receivers so that he can leak out then that way. He's not stacking him on the line where he's got to fight a DB off the line just to get through. He's already got him in motion. So it feels to me as much, credit to Atwell. He's coming now and he's making some really tough catches, which is one thing you sort of looked at his size and his build and you were like, if he's going up against these DBs, are just going to be able to smash the ball out. He's going to be popping it left, right, and centre because of his size. And he has come down with some quite tough catches, contested catches as well. And he's playing way above his size, to be honest. He's a few air balls that he's caught out as well. But, I think it's more a case, as I say, as well, McVay has now looked at him and gone, right, he's not going to be a traditional wide receiver where I can just stick him, press man coverage and he's going to beat the guy off the line of scrimmage and go physically. So and he seems to have evolved the offense a little bit to cater in for his skills. And that is good to see as well, is that McVay, to me, feels like he's rejuvenated. He's got back into this I love the coaching side again and has started to reopen his playbook and go, right, this isn't working. Let's do X, Y, Z instead. And look, so far in the first 2 weeks, it's been successful.
Yep. How much of that do you think? I'm not trying to take it away from McVay because I agree it does seem to be that he is a bit more rejuvenated. But how much of that do you think can be credited to Mike LaFleur coming in as offensive coordinator?
Yeah, some of it could be, credited to LaFleur as well. He may have looked at it and gone, you know what, if we did this with this guy, then, he could be open. So there may be some meeting of the minds between the two, but I'd say traditionally McVay has been the one that very much he's the offensive guru throughout the league, and I think he does have a large chunk, and it does feel to me, even when you're just watching the guy at his press conferences and everything, and his demeanor, he just feels more, like I say, energized and focused back in now on his job as a coach. It's a case of now, you know what, we've done the Super Bowl, we've done everything else. That monkey's off my back now. He's committed, and as I say, he feels like he's gone back to his playbook and gone, right, I need to basically, rip a large chunk of it out and rebuild it and start again with the skills that I've got. Like I say, LaFleur might be having some influence, but I do feel it is McVay's playbook, and it's going to be him that has the largest print on it.
We're talking about other thing, talking about the playbook. We ran 78 offensive plays on the day. 38 were passing, 40 were on the ground. So on the ground, rushing, Keenan Williams 15 for 52, 2 touchdowns. Cam Akers 22 for 29, 1 touchdown. Matthew Stafford 3 for 11. So we didn't abandon the run, is what I think you could maybe say. I mean, the yardages aren't maybe great, I guess, but it doesn't matter. There's 3 touchdowns there on the ground, and that's what matters more. They're the touchdowns that won us the game. How did you feel about the running game against the Seahawks?
Yeah, I thought it was a good mix up between the two of run and pass game. I think a lot of the stats probably are elevated because especially the fourth quarter, we were just basically right. Keep the ball, grind the clock. Let's not give Seattle away back just in case. So sometimes when you in games like that, the statistics are going to look a little bit better. But it does feel like he's not completely abandoning the run like he used to do. And like we said previously, a lot of what's the McVay likes to do is the play action stuff, which is you've got to get the run game going to free that open. And I think week 1, he got that working perfectly, where the Seahawks were a little bit, is this a run? Is this a pass? Is this a play action? So, he did have the defense confused in the first game. So it was nice to see. And hopefully, keeps going on forward, that he will keep it going. But, when we're in shootouts and we're behind, is he likely to go back to, previous tested thing of abandoning the run. So we'll just have to wait and see. But it was good that week one he kept it, balanced. He kept the offense balanced.
Yeah. And lastly, to the other point in the offense, just before we move on to the game against them from this week, the offensive line was something we were going to be worried about going into the season. A comment came in from SBC. The O-line has been a big difference. Would you agree that it was a hell of an improvement watching the offensive line against the Seahawks, and that it seemed that at times Stafford had plenty of time to throw?
Yeah, I think we did have a healthy offensive line. I think McVay has basically gone out and went, right, what is going to be our best combination that he's obviously worked through the preseason, and he's not, he's gone, right, Boone can switch into guard. Avila over the first 2 weeks has looked damn solid, to be honest, and it is something that we can build upon. Havenstein, who got a lot of flack off me last year as a player who didn't seem interested, this year seems to have come back in and looks a bit stronger. And, Flippin Jackson, playing as the left tackle, seems to be doing well so far. And obviously, I think Shelton in for Allen has been a big pickup because he can pass protect a little bit better than Allen. One thing I will say, not to take anything away from the O-line, but the Seahawks pass rush isn't the best in the league. It's one of the bottom, 7 in the league statistically for pass rush. They're not great pass rushing team, which does help. Obviously it makes this, but not taking anything away from them. As we'll probably discuss in a few minutes, when you're going up against better teams with better pass rushes, we'll see if they can hold up. Obviously, injuries have already started to happen, so we'll see how we go going forward. But like I say, one player who has stood out for me so far is Avila. I think he is definitely so far the star of our draft so far. Obviously, outside of Nacua, he is the guy that gives me the most upside and promise that he can actually be a franchise guard for us for the next God knows how many years, and maybe we finally replaced our Saffold. We've kind of missed on the line.
Yep. I'll speak more about Avila in a wee minute after we talk about this game. But yep, agree with you. Like it's good start from the offensive line. Ryan Wendell, who's came in as an offensive line coach, former Patriot, came from the Bills as assistant offensive line coach. Seems to be a guy that can bring a good bit of experience to help these guys out. And fingers crossed we can keep them as healthy as possible. But it was, like I said, it was good to see that they could maintain a pocket for Stafford to actually read and watch the plays develop, so he could pick out guys that want to pick out.
It wasn't just in the pass protection. Obviously, pass protection is important for us, but they were getting lanes open for the run game as well. They were getting that push and getting the the lanes open, and I think a large part of that was, to be honest, Coleman and Avila in the those two seem to be creating massive gashes that Karen Williams was unable to punch his way through because that there was wide open lanes, and I think that is again something that we've been missing, which is why the run game over the last few years hasn't looked particularly impressive because the players aren't given a chance because they're getting shot down on the line of scrimmage. And this so far it looks like that they're opening it up for us to get plays and chunk plays as well.
Yep. So all in all, positive from week one. In our last 5 games, we are 3-2. We maintained 3-2 record over the Seahawks. Obviously, we had 2 losses last year, but one of them was a highly contentious overtime loss. So that moves us on to week number 2, where we had the first game at SoFi Stadium for the year, where we brought them to town, and unfortunately we came out losing 30-23. We are 1-4 against them, but that one is the one that was the most important one, so they can take that one and do it when they go on about how they own us in the regular season. Regular season doesn't put rings on you if you beat us, never mind that. But Andy, well, 2 things. Firstly, it's obviously disappointing to lose against them, is it? However, Did you expect it to be as close as it did?
No, and I think every analyst, I was expecting us to walk into that game. I was a little bit more confident after. Still didn't think we'd win. But after week one, I felt a little bit more confident. But I was still expecting, like they did week one, to it was going to be a ridiculous score to them. And for the first two quarters, we were the better team, to be honest. In the first half, we were the better team. I don't know whether it was because they managed to sneak that touchdown in the dying second of the first half that maybe put us down a little bit. That kind of knocked the heads down a little bit. But the first half, we were the better team. I'm not being horrible. We were the better team, and
absolutely, it was that touchdown right in the death in the first half. And I feel like it's something we're glutton for punishment with us, because there is so many games. I think it was the year when we won the Super Bowl. It was the very last game of the season where we had them at home, and it was like pretty much almost the same, where we let them score so close to the end of the first half, and it turned the game. Like we were the better team for the whole of the first half. They got a score to bring it right close, and then it gave them confidence coming out in the second half. Totally feel like if we'd stopped them there, we would have won that game on Sunday.
Yeah, but again, it was just one of them games for us. We always seem to be regular season. We seem to, just never seem to do it. Christian McCaffrey ran all over us. I'm not being funny. Him and Debo basically torched us because, with their stats and, a lot of stupid penalties as well that we were giving away, and it was just one of them games. I think it was just, but it was nice to see that it wasn't, and you hate losing against them, but at the end of the day, it was one of them losses that wasn't, oh my God, it was kind of, you felt kind of positive with the loss, if you get what I mean, because we did play so well, and we were still in the game up until, and then, just felt like one of them games where, you're not happy you've lost, but at the same time, you're happy because we've shown promise. We basically stayed toe to toe with, let's be honest, one of the Super Bowl favourites for this year.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone's saying that the 49ers in the NFC are the team to beat.
Yeah.
So they're saying they're the team to beat, but and flip the coin, they're saying we're the team that will get beat week after week after week after week. And we ran them close. And I think when you look at, like, so many people actually said that, so many commentators have said post game, maybe people are sleeping on the Rams here. And that's not to say that as like we're going to the Super Bowl event, but I think a lot of people have written us off and thought, well, they're just nothing really. A lot of these guys that could be considered as like third stringers or fourth stringers, young guys that we're now having to rely on as our starters, really took it close with their first string team. And like you said, these are guys that this is Super Bowl favourites, but you've got Brock Purdy, who can't throw the ball more than 20 yards, didn't record a touchdown. He only had 17 completions. And it was on the ground again. They won the game. It's always on the ground. They win the game against us. They can't win the ball. They can't beat us in the air to win a game. They've always got to rely on the ground. And it's where I think the frustration is. We need someone. I said it in the off season. I'm not saying ideally, we want another Aaron Dorn, but we need someone of that caliber who can say, well, we can't triple team Donald because we've got someone else coming at us. Maybe the likes of Byron Young or Colby Turner could step up and eventually be those kind of guys. Fingers crossed, but that's what missing, those kind of guys that can come up, pass rushing, run block, like basically stopping the run stop defense. That's when it always lets us down against this mob, and it's annoying because we could do everything right in offense, and it does seem to be. I'm taking Adam Donald out of the equation here. It's up front in the defense, and the middle linebacking core that lets us down, because McCaffrey 116 yards on the ground. I hate seeing Samuel get any yards. He's 38 on the ground. Purdy was 5. they all ended up with a touchdown each, and that's what won the game. So you stopped the run against the 49ers, you beat them, basically.
Yeah, basically, you know, and that's just something we just never seem to be able to do. Again, it seems to be that Shanahan, I think, always knows what the defensive call is, even before the defensive coordinators put it on the field, and he just seems to have this thing of he knows how to beat it in the regular season. Obviously, in the off season, it's whatever, but in the regular season, he just always seems to be that one step ahead of us, and it comes with experience, Byron Young a few times, instead of playing the run and basically, setting the edge and making sure that McCaffrey couldn't come, outside of him to get those chunk plays, he was basically crashing in too early and, basically leaving that space open for him to basically get the plays. But that'll come with experience. Most edge rushers in their first year, struggle against the run because they just want to get after the quarterback, and it's teaching that discipline. So nothing against Byron Young. It's just, that inexperience. And I think, Shanahan knew that and basically played it to his advantage because a lot of the runs that they were getting were coming, right, where's Byron Young? Right, he's there. Right, we're going to run it down at him because he's more likely to crash in and not keep the discipline to the run, the edge, to set that edge.
Yeah.
The guy had a sack. He did make a few good tackles. I'm not trying to knock the guy, but, it's just that experience that will come to him that, okay, it's likely to be a run. I need to keep the edge and not try and crash inside and leave that lane wide open for the guy to run past me. But and like I say, a few ticky-tacky penalties, a few penalties that gone our way, a couple of, and this game could have even been closer again and we could have potentially walked out with the win, but
we're unlucky is how I would sum it up, to be honest. Like, considering I think everyone would have expected that to be an absolute blowout by them to beat us. The fact that we put 23 points on the board, and it was a touchdown, like that separated us. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's we got beat, but it's a good performance considering that no one expected anything out of us. But I'm looking at our offensive performance, and that it's totally different from the Seahawks game because we had 55 passing plays and 21 or 22 running plays. So you abandoned the run. I would say against there, Stafford was 34 for 55, 307 yards, touchdown, and unfortunately 2 picks.
See, I hate this where it's his interception. It wasn't. It was Kyron Williams' interception because the guy had it in his hands and let it fly over us, and then basically punted it up in the air. I don't feel. And obviously, the interception goes against Stafford, but I don't feel it was nothing. Stafford, he put the ball perfectly to the guy. He just had to catch it. It was, it wasn't even as if he was reaching up and stuff. It was at his chest, and he just. I think he was like, I've got this ball, and he was already thinking I'm turning and running before he'd even caught the ball. So I don't agree with sticking that one. Yeah, on Stafford, it's not his fault. There was nothing Stafford could do. And even the second, the interception, that to me was more on Van Jefferson because he should have ran the route better. He's supposed to be inside the DB to make sure. And I think you could see afterwards, Stafford was kind of like, you were in the wrong freaking place. What were you doing?
Yeah.
You can be behind him if you've got the speed, but if you're thinking, you need to get back inside of him, and you're basically there to get inside to make sure the DB can't make a play on it. And, he just didn't. So, the stats say 2, but to me, I don't think Stafford played that badly. And
no,
the two interceptions weren't.
They weren't really his fault, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't as if, he's just gone, it's 50-50, I'm just chucking it up and let's see what happens. Like, we have seen him do, I'm not saying, we all know he's interception pro and he's likes to play hero ball sometimes.
Yeah.
But none of these were his hero balls. It was bad breakdown by the other players rather than him.
And like you said, it's unfortunate because the Stafford gets those stats when it's one of those ones which shows this recording that an interception against a quarterback isn't always fair because, like you said, he put the ball exactly where it was supposed to be. It wasn't like, the Hollywood pass. Why are you chucking up there? Why are you looking for the deep ball? There's no one there and it's picked off. It's went straight to one of those, their defensive backs. It's like you said, it's Williams basically chucking up there and Jefferson just not running the route correctly. So, I mean, I know it was a decent performance from Stafford. And again, with health and the concussions problems he had last year, it's good again to see him, kind of back to the kind of quarterback he is. And fingers crossed, I think when hopefully Cup comes back sooner or later, but as soon as he's properly healthy too, hopefully when he's got all his weapons out there, he can get back to being, the absolute gunslinger that we know him to be. Going back to the run game. So on the ground, Kyron Williams 14 for 52, touchdown. Stafford 4 for 17, 1 for 11 for Skoranek, 1 for 5 for Atwell, and Nacua 2 for 4. The most notable name from there will come on in a minute is obviously Cam Akers, but we're going to talk about him very soon. In receptions, Nacua again leading the way, 15 for 147. I'm really desperate for this guy to get a touchdown now after the yardage per Atwell 7 for 77. Williams 6 for 48. Higbee 3 for 12. Higbee seems to be quite quiet. I've noticed off the stats and the plays from the first two games compared to like last year where Higbee was more of a target. It seems to have kind of gone the other way where he isn't targeted as much. Have you picked up on that, Andy? And do you think there's any particular reason for it, or do you think it's just purely game plan to kind of keep him quiet out of the game, maybe get him to block a bit more or whatnot?
Yeah, I think it's more, like you say, it's just they're relying on more to make sure that, to help the offensive line out. It's right, we're going to have you in more blocking. Again, I think it's just the evolution, there's only so many balls to go around. And if you've got Nacua, doing the work of between Tua and Nacua and Atwell, basically getting the stats that 3 or 4 players are going to get, that there is going to be somebody has to unfortunately miss out. And, that is Higbee. And, I also, no offense to Higbee, I just don't think he's the same player he used to be. He seems to have lost a bit of dynamism to him. He's not as quick and as agile as he used to be. And, it could be just a case as well of maybe McVay's kind of, because Higbee's had a lot of injuries throughout his career. He's trying to keep him healthy and maybe, for the longer stretch to make sure he keeps him for longer than, he's typically been. So, we don't know, but as long as things are working at the moment, I don't think I'm bothered who gets the targets. I'm sure at some point there will be a game where Higbee will take over and he'll be the number one target, but I think, with how Nakua's playing and he is sort of playing that slot tight end sort of role in the offense, I do think that, he is taking a line share of what would be Higbee's because they're keeping Higbee and saying, right, instead you block and make sure that Stafford stays upright to keep Stafford healthy. And like I say, it may be an evolution that McVay has looked at the offense and gone, well, I'm going to have to keep my tight end in and just let him be an extra blocker to try and keep Stafford healthy so he's not taking any shots. Yep. Because it is noticeable that Higbee's not playing as dynamically as he used to, but also Stafford is predominantly staying on his feet, so is there a link between the two that McVay is using? Like I say, Higbee is more now just to block and basically keep Stafford upright to make these plays.
Yep. So been kind of putting off talking about them. So you've touched upon them already. So we'll start off with Steve Avila, because the two players that have kind of been highlighted the most out of the first 2 week games are Avila and Nacua. Nacua is obviously the he's been granted as the title for this week's episode. So Steve Avila, Andy, you touched upon him. You believe that this guy could be a bit, or finally we've replaced Roger Saffold.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the guy. For the first 2 weeks, he's come into the team, he's just come straight in, settled, and it's just like a really solid guard for us. His pass protection was always, wasn't always going to be the issue. It was his thing coming out of college was he's not mobile, he's not a good run blocker, But like I said, even in our draft episode, that is out the two that you want. You'd rather have a good pass protector it's easier to coach a pass protector up to be a better run blocker than it is a run blocking guard to go to a pass. It's the easier of the two. And, through 2 weeks, he looks like he has picked up the coaching. His run blocking has looked a lot better than it was in college, and like I say, I think he's been a massive improvement to the offensive line. I know it's only one position, but it makes that big difference because, again, they're not worried about leaving him one-on-one with some of these, pass rushers because he's just like, okay, leave me with him, I'll deal with them, and he's kept them quiet. I think he had one against, was it Nick Bosa, and he basically just flattened Nick Bosa and just made him look completely wasted. It's like, and this is one of the top 3 to 5 edge rushers in the league, and he's just like, yeah, whatever, mate, I'll deal with you all day. So I've really been pleasantly surprised, with the guy and how quickly he's just stepped in and looked solid from day one, and he's not looked like a lot of rookie players do where, especially in the offensive line where they will have ugly losses. Yeah, obviously sample's still small, it's only 2 weeks, but for the first 2 weeks, the guy has looked, to be honest, like a bit of a steal in the draft because, he's playing like a first round guard.
Absolutely. I've been really impressed with him, and I'm absolutely elated that we were sensible. We've had that pick, that number 36 pick, and taking him as a guard. The guy looks like he's a bit of a steal. I don't think you would think if you just showed him to anyone, didn't say who he was, you wouldn't think he was a rookie. Is what I've seen from him from the first 2 weeks. The guy looks like he's been playing there for a couple of years. Like you said, he's picked up the coaching really quickly, and he's already performing well. And he's a solid addition to that offensive line. And just imagine if we could, draft more guys in the offensive line like that, given that we've got a first round draft pick coming up next year. So like some of the ones like they could be smart again and draft another offensive lineman, absolute solid beast up front, and we could really protect, the pocket, and we could have like another solid guard that could open up channels for us to actually have like a solid run game. So yeah, for me, like, absolute delight. I'm looking forward to seeing more of. He looks mobile enough for me, that he can basically get across that line at whatever speed he needs to protect, to open up, lanes and whatnot. So yeah, absolutely delighted. And then that brings me on to the man of the moment. Not a nice well. He's there's no point even asking who player of the week 1 is or week 2 is for us. It's clearly going to be Puka Nacua, our 5th round steal from the draft. Well, I said, but he's the title. He is a bit of an enigma. He's came out of nowhere and just totally came out the traps flying, hasn't he, Andy?
Yeah. I think nobody was expecting this at all, and he has very much just like, okay, Cooper Cup, right? We're missing him, but we'll just I'll slot straight in and do the job, And I will say, first quarter of the Seahawks game, there was a few miscommunications. Obviously, I think him and Stafford were just a little bit off key. That was more, inexperience. But it was like, I think Stafford went and had a way with him on the sideline. And basically from that point on, it was like, yeah, okay, this is what I need to do. Pick it up, away I go, and let's get on with it. And the guy has been, absolutely phenomenal. I will say the guy had potential coming out of college. The reason why he did fall so low was he does carry injury risks. He had a lot of injuries in college. He could never keep himself healthy. But when he was out playing in college, he was, he did show these flashes as, he's a slot wide receiver. That's it. He's never going to be one that can stack on the outside and win vertically or anything. He is very much, Cooper Kupp, Hunter Renfro sort of mold of the atypical slot wide receiver. But, he is basically him outside of Atwell has basically been our offense for the first 2 weeks. And, nice to see as well. He's run, I think this week he run rookie of the week. which
is.
is, you know, how he
He is.
never won it last week, I don't know, but you know, he should be 2 weeks in a row for me.
That's it.
You
I mean,
know.
he's 25 receptions for 266 yards.
Yeah, he's broke.
He's second on the receiving list at the moment behind Justin Jefferson, and he's broken the record for the most receptions and for a rookie inside the first 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
So I mean, the guy has came out the trap, and I think I know why, because it was Jordan Rodriguez posted an article today that you know how Stafford and Cup have got what's called the Breakfast Club, and they've got this kind of wee thing themselves where they go over film and whatnot and work out schemes and routes they can run. Apparently, Nacua went up to the two of them and asked could they join. It's an exclusive club, and they said yeah. And I think that's why there's this seemingly almost instant connection there. Like you said, there was a bit of miscommunication, but Stafford went and spoke to him, and all of a sudden it just started clicking. And I think it's down to this. I think it's one of the ones since he's came in from the draft, he's been working, you know, on kind of like the side with Stafford and probably Cup as well. I think the only thing is, like you say, he's a slot receiver. He plays in a kind of similar role to Cup, so it's like, where's he going to fit in when Cup comes in? Is it one of the ones we're going to have two slot receivers or whatnot? That's the only thing I think will worry me long term. Is that, you know, he's starting affair now, but is that affair going to go out quickly when we've got Cup back, or is there going to be a way to have both of them out there?
Well, yeah, this is the thing. You know, I think we were discussing, you know, in our WhatsApp group between, you know, the admin for the Rams is, you know, we for me it's going to be interesting. You know, teams traditionally that have gone, you know what, we'll try and play two slot wide receivers. It hasn't worked because basically
No.
you're queuing off on safeties and linebackers of, well,
Yeah.
you know what, you're going to be playing that intermediate stuff. We'll crash the safeties and the linebackers onto the line and basically nullify those things out. You know, now, yes, you know, Cup is that weird slot wide receiver who can play the outside stuff, but that's not where he plays best because, you know, he isn't a 4-3, 4-4 sort of speed guy, you know, and, you know, it's going to be difficult. So it'll be interesting, as you say, to see. You know, one thing I did say in the thing was maybe, you know, I think Cup is probably a better blocker than probably 80% of the tight ends in the league on the line. You know, could we maybe see McVay evolution it where Nacua stays in the slot and then we put Cup as maybe that tight end 2 role where Hopkins is playing at the moment where, all right, he can block, but then he's also going to get lost and escape and play, you know, that typical, you want that second tight end. You know, Higbee can be the blocker tight end, and then the other tight end is normally one that leaks out, sneaks out on, you know, crosses and stuff, hitches and things like that to free them open, you know. And could that be maybe something that, you know, I'm not saying, you know, convert Cup to a tight end, but he can sort of play that role and then leak out and get lost that way.
So what you're saying is the kind of play where, like, Stafford would put Cup in motion and he'd come in towards the tight end position, start the play, he gets involved in the blocking and then breaks free.
Yeah, and then, you know, he can leak out and get lost, and then it's also then going to put a strain on defenses because they're going to look all of a sudden and go, you know, well, hang on, Cup's lined up as a tight end position, so we're either going to have to bring one of our corners to cover him, which would then free up, or you're going to be saying, right, well, you know what, a linebacker's going to have to try and cover Cup, which is just going to be easy for Cup to just eat all day because no linebacker's going to hang with him.
Well, do you know what? This may be something. We'll put a pin in this because this might be someone. Cup comes back. That could be something very interesting to watch to see if that develops. Because the reason I'm saying that is because, well, Benny School fullback, so it could be. It's something for us to watch. So moving on elsewhere,
just one player, not so much to highlight per se, but I think one guy I think I'd like to just highlight who's played well for us over the first 2 weeks, you know, give special teams some love, is Ethan Evans. I thought, you know, for a rookie punter, he's come in, done the job, you know, done what we expect him to do. And, you know, that punt against the Whiners, 72-yard long punt. That was just boom, and it was like, holy heck, mate! You could, what the heck is going on?
We said in our draft episode the guy has a leg on him. He's not only got a leg, but he can keep that ball in the air as well.
Yeah, but my God, that kid can thump that ball down the field. And it's like, it's nice to see. He's just come in, and again, it's just gone with the job that he needs to do. And it's, again, small sample size of 2 weeks, but he looks like a good pickup in the draft as well. I love giving special teams some love, and the guy deserves some love for what he's doing. And even Mayer, as much as week one, he was very, kind of like, and even I was like, yeah, time to replace him with, get someone else in. He's not the guy for us. This week, he sort of settled down a little bit and, made all of his kicks and looked a lot more solid.
Yeah.
So hopefully, moving forward as he's getting more game time and maybe getting that confidence back, he could potentially, turn into something. But I'm still at the point with him where every time it's a field goal, I'm kind of, holding my breath thinking, oh my God.
We'll give him time. Like you said, from week one was kind of, I guess you're right, the hold the breath moment, but looked a bit more composed week two. Moving on. I'm going back to talking about the kind of the running back core, right? We need to address it was the elephant in the room. He's no longer the elephant in the room because we have traded him away, and that is Cam Akers. So Cam Akers, he's finally gone because this has been a bit of saga that's been going on a year now. Traded him to the Vikings for a conditional 6th round pick. I believe there's the ins and outs here is they can put a tender and they could end up with a 3rd round pick or whatever if someone signs him up as a restricted free agent. It frees up about 1.2 something million in the cap space, but they take a cap hit of about $640,000. Andy, just simple yes or no, you happy to see Akers gone?
At this point, yeah. I think the guy had potential, but I just think mentally or attitude-wise, he just wasn't there. And, I wish the guy luck in Minnesota. Let's hope he can turn it around. He's not got much competition in Minnesota at the moment because their running back for the first 2 weeks has looked butt cheeks. But, we'll wait and see. Maybe he can get his career back in order. But here it was just like he had the potential. And like I say, it's just there was something mentally with his attitude that, and now there's rumours that apparently his agent went in week one and basically was like, right, let's sort of contract extension out. The Rams basically like, no, not yet, get stuffed. And that was what caused Akers to basically throw a tantrum again. And then basically McVay just went, fuck it, forget it, go. We've had enough now. Whether that rumour is true or not, I don't know. But that is the rumour I've seen on social media that his agent basically went in wanting an extension, and the Rams basically said, "Fuck off, you're not getting it yet, mate."
If that rumour's true, then good. But I think it's ones. I think let's be real here. I think we all knew this was the last year Cam Akers was going to be a Ram. Put it that way. The guy, unfortunately, hadn't done enough up to this point that would merit discussing extend these contracts. So if the rumours true, his agent went and says we want to discuss a contract extension, I'm glad the Rams have basically told him where to go and found somewhere else for him to go. We've talked about Akers enough about this. Guy's got a bit of an attitude. He did tweet that he was thankful for his time for the Rams, and for what they did for him and whatnot. He's got a ring at the end of the day, I guess. And now he moves on. But that moves on to them bringing up Kyren Williams as RB1. Kyren Williams, who is in his 2nd year, didn't really see a lot of him last year, but so far this year, I believe he's, I want to say it's either 3rd or 4th. He is in rushing stats so far. The guy, for me, seems to have more the attitude you kind of would want from a running back, and that touchdown, where he just he looks like a running back that if he's got to power his way through, on a goal line kind of stance or whatnot to try and get through to score, like the guy looked to me as if he's willing to go through the gates of hell to get over that line. Whether or not he's RB1 material for me remains to be seen, but we're going to see an awful lot of him now this year as kind of a preferred running back option, aren't we, Andy?
Yeah, I think so. I think at the moment it is going to be a case of whoever the hot hand is for that week is probably going to get the nod.
Yeah.
I'm hoping now that Ace is gone that maybe this will open up maybe Evans actually getting a chance to come on the field, because I do still like what the guy could do. But surprisingly for Williams, considering he's 5'9" and 200 pounds dripping wet, does show a lot of power for somebody who's a lot smaller back than you'd think. But I will say the guy is probably the slowest running back I think I've ever seen in the league in terms of his, head down go speed. He's not athletically quick at all, but he's playing well for us at the moment. But I do feel, is he running back one material? Probably not. But is he good enough for now? Yeah. Until things change. Yeah, he's good enough for now. He's getting the job done. But I do think this is going to be a case of it will be a running back by committee and whoever is the hot hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, if Evans, I feel now needs to get in the rotation. I'd much rather have Evans playing before Rivers and Royce Freeman. For me, the guy. If we're going to go with Karen Williams, we need that speed as running back too, and I think Evans brings that juice, to hit the breakaway runs with speed. And I think if we give, McVay traditionally, I don't know what it is with the guy, just does not trust rookie running backs hardly. He's not, and I think he needs to just personally get the guy now in the field, even if he is just running back two, get him a few touches a game, get him in the rotation and start moving forward with him. But give Williams his credit where credit's due. He's come in and just done the job for us, and I think that's again what we need. And even in pass protection, he's not looked horrendous for a small guy. Normally that size they're getting bullied. And he's looked solid.
Yep. Well, we'll be able to keep an eye on his progress as this season develops. So, enough about us for 1 minute. Let's talk about what's happening elsewhere in the league. Andy, from weeks 1 and 2, any particular teams you would say are surprise performers, or any teams that you would say are surprising underperformers?
Yeah, I'm going to start with my underperforming team, and that is what the hell is going on with the Bengals, considering they were one of the favourites, at the start of the year. They were another, potential AFC Super Bowl bound team, and a lot of analysts have even predicted them to be the Super Bowl winners this year. I know last year they started 0-2, much like this year, and then went on, and I think won, they only lost 2 games then for the rest of the season, but this year something just does not look right with them. And, I think now is the perfect time for us to play them because of how bad they honestly do look. They look like the shambles of themselves, to be brutally honest at the moment. I'll probably say surprised overperforming team. I'm going to surprisingly say the Buccaneers. I think a lot of analysts at the beginning of the years, had them in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes and the 2-0 to start the season. And Mayfield has basically looked how he did last year for us and seems to have come out the gate. I've got to say, he's, an elite quarterback, but he's looked good enough to get the job done for them.
Yep, I saw that. I didn't see what a player was. I seen it appeared up on TikTok. It was one of the Buccaneers players that I didn't recognise him, so I apologise in advance for whatever. But he was talking about Mayfield, and he was talking about how he said this. He just came, it's similar to us, like when he came in out the cold and won his a game that game against the Raiders. He was saying that he basically came in. He came up to us and say, right, when I do this, when I do that, the defense, it's because this is what they're going to do. He had all these signals that he didn't have the signals. Sorry, he knew the hand signals of the defense, what they
Yeah.
were going to do and what it meant, and he could communicate to team. And every single time, this player said that every time he told us this is what we were going to do, he was 100% right every single time. He got it right. Like, the guy's an intelligent quarterback. You know, I wouldn't say he's an elite quarterback. He's a highly intelligent quarterback. And he knows what he needs to do to get it won, to win a game. So yeah, I mean, it's good for him. Like we'll had him for a few games like that, but he gave us some good moments towards the end of last season that we really needed. You know, so like I do wish him well. I never rated him before he came to us, but like I wish him well now because at least he gave
Yeah.
some positives to talk about last year.
I think the other one we probably have to talk about is, you know, I suppose for two NFC teams, you know, what one is Jordan Love seems like the successor, quite a good successor to Aaron Rodgers. He's played well, right? They've won one, lost one, but he looks like, you know, he's getting the job done quite well. He looks like, you know,
Yep.
he's basically seems to be for the Packers again. They've left, like they did with Rodgers, they've let him sit for a few years behind, you know, someone else, and then he's stepping in, and so far has looked absolutely, you know, what they expect from a really good quarterback. And, you know, is Justin Fields a bust at this point, especially after his comments yesterday where he threw his coaches under the bus and
Yeah,
then retracted it a few hours later? You
he's
know,
not good. I seen a great clip about I get it was on TikTok, and I think it was in one of the plays from their games last week, and it was basically like the caption on it was Justin Fields reads defenses slower than my grandma, and it
yeah,
showed them, and it's like I think I counted at least two players that were wide open that he could have threw the ball to, and then he tries to scramble, and it's like Jesus Christ, man, how can you not? He's looking right at them.
yeah. Oh, was that the one where he literally ran into his own offensive lineman and went
Ah,
nowhere?
that's the one. It's like I've seen it on TikTok, and it was like,
He had two
like
players wide open in the end zone, and he goes and runs into his own fucking guard or whatever it
um,
was. You're like,
yeah, I'd say he's a bust, absolute bust.
yeah, I think as much as people were saying at the beginning of the year, you know, us and Arizona are a thing, you know, for Caleb Williams. I think at the moment the Bears might be looking for Caleb Williams sooner
Well,
rather than later.
well, since you brought him up, I actually want to talk about Caleb Williams, and it's not. I, I I don't think, based on what I've seen the first two games, I don't think we're in the Caleb Williams sweepstake this year. I'm not saying next year we're going to be, but I'm just saying this year. And the reason I say this year is, don't know if you've seen him, and I think it was his dad that came out. Basically, what they've said is that Caleb will stay in college for another season if he has to, if he doesn't like who's going to have the number one pick. And as soon as I seen that, I just thought, this is Eli Manning all over again, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
and you know, anyone that needs refreshing. A lot of clips have been coming out recently about this, which is especially like in TikTok, which is quite interesting. Eli Manning, when he was drafted, the Chargers had the number one pick. The Giants, who he ended up with, had like I think it was like 5 or 6. Eli Manning's dad, Archie, made it abundantly clear he wasn't going to San Diego, and that his preferred destination was New York, and be that for like marketing opportunities or whatnot. I think it was that the Chargers were basically like, well, we're going to pick you anyway. And Manning was basically his camp. Eli Manning never came out and said it. It was implied that he said it, but he never actually was quoted as saying, I'll just sit on the bench all year. It was his camp that was kind of like saying, well, you can draft him all you want. He's not going to play for you. Which led to the Giants trading with them, so they picked him, but he went to the Giants, and then Rivers went to San Diego and had a good career there. And also Eli Manning had arguably a great career in New York. For me, I'm bringing up this now because it feels like this is Eli Manning all over again with Caleb Williams. He will allow himself to be drafted if he wants to play for the team that holds, that number one pick. I don't think he wants to take the risk of, like, say, the Cardinals have got the number one pick. He doesn't want to go there and risking seeing if anyone will trade up to take him or whatnot. But who like, since we're on, if he was to go, if he was to come into the draft next year, which I don't think he's going to now, who do you think is more likely to have that number one pick based off what you've seen the first 2 weeks of the season, Andy?
honestly, I think it's a three-way toss-up at the moment between the Cardinals, the Bears, and honestly, the Texans. Although I think the Texans actually won't have their pick because they gave it away to somebody else. So whoever's got that pick from the Texans, well, in fact, no, it's Arizona. So Arizona could potentially end up with pick 1 and pick 2. So they potentially could get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft if they really wanted to, which would be kind of freaky.
And one side good for not good for Arizona because they're obviously a divisional rival. But if it was any other team, saying good for them because they could essentially replace their fullback with a potential franchise one, and then a potential franchise wide receiver, and Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think the thing is given what they've paid Murray, are they genuinely going to be willing to just throw it all away for him? Or, I think going forward, it's going to be now, I think in a few weeks' time, Murray can come off IR.
Yeah.
If he's healthy and they say, no, go and sit in Cabo for a year and get a suntan, then, tells me he's out the door and, they've already give up and they're going to let him walk and basically try and get rid of him. If he comes back and plays, then, it tells me that maybe they are going to, and then that opens up who they could potentially get. But, I don't think, obviously, at the moment, Houston are in the Caleb Williams because they've just drafted Stroud and, the guy has looked competent given how bad the Texans are and how bad they're. We all mock, we're livid about our pass protection last year, but our pass protection last year still looks 10 times better than what it does at the moment in Houston. But I think you are looking at potentially. I think the Bears are about to get. I think at this point are going to have to give up on Fields, especially with them basically throwing the coaches under the bus, and basically calling them out. So we'll see, but obviously it's early days still, but yeah, I could see it. And I suppose one thing that you've got to look at as college as well is obviously they've got the nil now, so they're getting paid. So the likes of Caleb Williams is actually earning more now than he would do as a first round pick in the draft. So all of a sudden, the impetus of I've got to get to the league to get paid. That's out the window now. He doesn't need to because he's still, he can do his extra year in college, get his degree, and still walk away a rich man before he's even, he doesn't never have to touch the league. So I think the nil does open up that thing now that we are going to see rookies who are a lot older, like we saw in this year's draft. There was a lot more older players. Obviously, a lot of that was because of the COVID season. A lot of players lost a year because of COVID. Yeah. But we are going forward because players are getting paid, especially the elite ones now. They're going to be like, actually, I don't want to go to X, Y, and Z team, so I'll just stay for another year and, let's see what happens the year after.
And then risk that they're they're off god awful the next year.
Or they'll get injured or something. That there's that risk, but like they're saying, they're getting paid now, so it doesn't really matter to them because they're still getting the cash anyway.
Yep. So the last thing I want to touch upon in terms of elsewhere in the league, obviously Aaron Rodgers went down after 4 plays. The season highlights is basically him running on the field at MetLife with the American flag. So he's out basically. I don't care what they say, he's out for the season. But it raises the question about surfaces, and Surfacegate rears its head again. Should all fields be grass or turf? Before I ask you to answer that, Andy, the argument over this is how in America, when they have like the glamour friendlies they have for like Premiership teams or like the Barcelona or whatever go over there, they put down turf. We call it turf over here, which is grass, but they don't. They call it artificial turf because it's, again, it's the whole it's the whole across the pond mentality, isn't it? That they call something different. They put grass down for soccer, football matches willy-nilly over the summer, but won't put it down for the NFL, with the exception of a couple of stadiums. I think one of them, for example, is Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, which is quite surprising given the climate in Vegas. Obviously, Rodgers has slipped, he's torn his ligaments. There's always been countless injuries on artificial turf. What's your thoughts, Andy? Should it be turf or should it be grass?
It's a difficult one, to be honest, without knowing everything to it. I personally, like you say, though, the fact that SoFi is going to be used for the World Cup.
Yeah.
They're basically going to be ripping our stadium, the grass out of our or the turf out of our stadium to put grass in for the World Cup games.
Yep, yeah, they can do it, no problem for the friendlies. They're going to do it for the World Cup, and I think
Yeah.
there's merit in the argument. Why can you do it for that? To essentially making money, but we've got this league that makes billions every single year. Why can't there be? Why can't you just invest in
I
grass?
did read something, and funny enough, I think it was the company name, Helios, who were the guys who actually installed our artificial turf for SoFi.
Uh-huh.
And basically, one of the things they're saying is because it is used week in, week out by two teams, same as MetLife Stadium,
Yeah.
that a traditional grass field wouldn't put up with the rigors of an NFL game week in, week out, and it would basically be torn up and shredded by halfway through a season, which is why the turf, artificial stuff, is better for the stadium. It's easiest to maintain and everything else because it's not getting ripped up like a traditional. Which, when you put it like that, I can see the point to that. But then there's teams who already have one, and yet they still have artificial turf. So it's clearly maybe a money saving because they don't have to pay the maintenance on a grass field compared to an artificial field.
Yeah, just when you said that about the two-team thing, the other thing that popped into me, and this is going back to when the Raiders were in Oakland, and also when Miami shared their stadium as well. Baseball fields on football fields. You had many years where these guys were essentially playing on like whatever it is if it's sandy kind of gravelly like material where the outfield is, around the bases. And we had guys playing week in, week out. They weren't even playing on grass basically, and that was all right. But now they're saying like, no, 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 we can't maintain two types of surfaces. There wasn't a problem when you had two types of surfaces for two completely different sports. And like you said, it's cost cutting. Like I can understand it. Like in football here in the UK, you totally get the reason why at lower levels of like the pyramids because the teams don't necessarily maybe have the money to pay ground staff to maintain, grow the grass or whatnot. Totally get it from that perspective. For a level like the NFL, you're telling me you can't afford to maintain, replace. I like to MetLife and SoFi are getting used, basically every single week of the season. But it's not like it's a football season like our football, where it's going from like July through to the May, like almost like 10 months, and it's getting used. So over those 10 months, it's getting used like still more than an NFL season would. And I know you've got the offensive lines and the grass is getting kicked up and whatnot, but the amount of money in the league, come on.
Yeah,
come on, fuck, you can maintain it. You're just being lazy.
I think the other thing as well, I read this thing from the company because I was like looking at it today and I was like, okay, why did they do it? And they basically say it is actually safer for players because the ground flexes better, so it makes it safer because players' cleats aren't getting stuck with the grass. The turf moves with the foot a little bit, so it doesn't allow. And they're basically claiming it's less injury prone than grass. Or with their
Indoor
test,
stadiums, yes. Indoor stadiums, I could agree with that point. Outdoor stadiums, no, because you'll probably know yourself, Andy. When you're outside, if you get artificial turf wet, it can be an ice rink sometimes. You're turning on it, you could easily, hurt yourself on it. And indoor stadium, I can understand that point.
but they're basically saying it's safer, and it's I'm sure there's a bunch of science that goes into it that the likes of us will never understand.
Yeah.
Where these guys are saying it's safer, some players are saying it's not safe. Again, it's one of them. It takes a star player to be injured before people start opening their mouths again. It's not been a problem for the last year or so, and now all of a sudden it's a problem again.
Do you know? It's just popped in my head. I bet you any money. See when the whole bringing in the turf originally happened, I bet you there was the same kind of argument about how it wasn't safe to have grass, and
Yeah,
that's why they were bringing turf in. It's probably just one of those ones. It swings and roundabouts, really. I think
yeah.
because of the World Cup, it heightens the argument because it's like, well, for you can do it for that, but like you're saying that no, everybody needs to have like turf where possible or whatnot. I mean, I
I
understand it's probably it's a team preference or whatnot.
Yeah, it's not set by the league or anything. It's down to the individual teams as to what they want to roll with. If do they want turf or grass, and for I think a lot of them, they just go because it is easier maintenance. It's easier, and it looks better throughout the year. It's not getting turned up like some fields do get.
Uh-huh.
It's but the argument can go on and on. Which is better. You know, I think was Chubb. Is Pitt's Chubb's injury the other night? Was that on a grass turf? So could people then argue, well, look what's happened to him? That's grass. It depends on thing. I must admit I was rather annoyed at Rodgers getting injured. As much I had the Jets as sort of my sneaky. I had a £5
That's
bet on
right.
them
Yeah.
going to the Super Bowl. And being Super Bowl winners with Rodgers because I felt like and he was my guy I drafted in the fantasy as well as my quarterback one. So, it's just it sucked. The Jets just seem to be one of them cursed teams now. They had it happen. Was it 20 odd years ago? With Vinny Testaverde, they brought him in. It was going to be the savior of the franchise. Blah blah blah, and it was literally he got injured like 6 plays into his career with them, and that was it. He was done. And now it's happened again with Rodgers. It's like I think at this point you just have to say the Jets is a cursed franchise for quarterbacks.
They are indeed. So
And then you had all the rumours of the Jets were wanting Stafford and blah. It's like yeah, get stuffed, mate. That ain't happening. And then you've got the whole is Brady coming out of retirement nonsense as well. They're going to replace Rodgers with Brady and.
I seen one of those see the tier makers things about it, and it was like quarterbacks, and there was a tier for guys who the Jets should call, and even had Brett Favre on the list as well. Like,
yeah, I think I think maybe it would probably cost them. They could possibly make a phone call to someone, maybe a Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater, Gardner Minshew, that sort of, who I
Carson
think.
Wentz.
No. That sort of quarterback who, as much as, Jacoby Brissett for Cleveland last year when he was in for, the suspended sex pest, to be honest, looked like a better player than he did. He had them go. So, there's something there. And I think he would potentially give them a higher floor than at the moment Zach Wilson's ever going to give them.
That's it. So moving on.
Breaking news, obviously not for us.
Oh,
Traven Diggs of the Cowboys is out for the season. He tore his ACL in practice.
well,
It's just been broken.
So that's them eliminated from playoffs then. Excellent. Fantastic.
Well,
The Cowboys hunt for a
don't
ring goes on.
Well, it doesn't matter if they make the playoffs. Dak will always choke anyway come the playoffs.
He will. So moving on. So we're going to touch upon just briefly about this week's game. We have the Bengals coming up Monday Night Football, 1:15 in the morning, GMT. So we are 2-3, against the Bengals in the last 5 games. One of them was obviously beating them in the Super Bowl. Going at this one, I think we all kind of were predicting that it's a loss, but like you kind of posed the question earlier on, Andy, the hell is going on in Cincinnati? So how do you feel going to this game? Do you think it's in our case of, well, it's our game to win now, as opposed to it's our game to lose?
Yeah, I do feel more confident going into this game. I think the big question is going to be the whole Joe Burrow situation and what is Joe Burrow going to be? Is he going to be this guy who for the first 2 weeks is carrying this injury and isn't the same player because doesn't have the mobility because his legs hurting him, or is it going to be, are they just going to sit him? And then if it's Jake Browning in for them, then I think we've got, we should be the clear favourites, which is unusual for us this year. But, I think the big question at the moment is Burrow and how healthy is he going to be? If we can keep him, if he's not mobile because of his injury, that's possibly going to allow AD and co to get at him and, smash him in the mouth again. So, but, I'd say I'm more confident now than I was at the beginning of the season. I looked at this week, the first 3 weeks, I was like, oh my Jesus, we're just, our season's going to be over with by week 4. And now all of a sudden it kind of, games that we weren't confident in, now we're confident, moving forward into the thing. And, it was Monday night games. So, any players that are carrying knocks for us, such as No Boom, it gives them an extra day to, potentially get healthy and get back into the startup as well. And, I'm quietly confident now that, much like the Niners game, we could possibly still lose this game, but it's not going to be the blowout I thought it was going to be to start the year.
Yeah, I much agree with the same. I think it's our game to lose, and I'm quietly confident about this one. This brings me on to a question it came in from the Godfather, Anthony Wallace. Are the Rams this better than we expected, and are either of us ready to revise our predicted record for the season? Andy, first of all, will be better than we expected.
Yeah, we're better than we expected. I'm not. There's no argument on that one. I think everyone, we were all expecting, to be 0-2 at the moment. Not to have won a game and to look kind of, very much in a rebuild year, and we've not looked like that. That there's still improvements to be made. Don't get me wrong, but we've looked more competent than we do. It's still only 2 weeks of the season. There's always that thing in the back of your mind of, 1 or 2 injuries and key positions, and, this thing could fall very quickly off a cliff, and that is still my biggest worry, is that, beyond what we have injury wise, we would struggle. And especially Stafford looks great and healthy at the moment, but if he gets knocked about a little bit, how healthy, long-term health for him. And also at the moment, we ain't even got Stetson Bennett, with whatever's going on with him that we don't know about, which means we'd be reliant on someone like Brett Rippon to get the game going, and you just really don't feel confident at all that, even offensively, that we would not compete, and teams would honestly be able to put 13 points against us, and we'd basically lose all those games because our offense wouldn't get anything.
I think what you're saying basically, the key is to us revising our predictions here is a healthy Stafford, basically.
Yeah.
But for myself, I think just looking through the schedule now, we've got our bye week at week 10, and on my predictions I've got is 2-7 going into the bye week. Only picking up wins against I had is beating the Colts and beating the Cardinals, and losing to everyone else. That's the Seahawks, 49ers, Eagles, Steelers, Cowboys, and Packers. Are you I think you had this? Well, you had this down as a losing record as well yourself, Andy. Do you feel like what you predicted the season to kind of go, that you're actually it's going to be a lot? But we're revising the prediction records. I'll just put it down a question. Do you think we'll have a winning season? Yes or no?
If we stay healthy, yes. I think we can scrape. I'm not going to say, we're going to be 10, 11, 12 wins, whatever. I think we can scrape a 9-8 season out of this, and potentially sneak in as that 7th wild card into the playoffs. Potentially, if we can stay healthy. That is the big one for me. It's if we can stay healthy, and if players keep trending upwards as they're doing at the moment.
Yep. I'm going through the regular season schedule based off of what I've seen of other teams in the first 2 weeks of the season. Now, Matt, I predicted us 5-12. I believe. But looking at it, there is. If we keep Stafford healthy, get cut back maybe around about kind of week 5 or 6, say. There's every chance we could end up with a winning record here, be that 9-8. Depending on how the other teams go, Christ, I could even say we could end up with 10 wins. Looking at who we've got in our schedule, and that's based on what I've seen the first 2 weeks. So who knows? Basically, off of like what we kind of thought was going to happen going into the season, I had, let's say, 5-12. No way we were going to get a winning record. But looking at the Seahawks' performance, looking at how we did against the 49ers, who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows? We can't predict it all the time, but let's see what happens. And
we'll see what happens. We're just happy at the moment. Here's one for you before we go on to fantasy. And this is something I've seen a few analysts now saying, and this would be interesting to see your take. With how well Nacua is doing, is it time to trade Cup?
Oh, no, is my answer to that. No, because Nacua is a rookie. He's on a rookie contract. We've got him for a good few years. We're paying Cup. So, no. Absolutely not. Because you can build offensive weapons. If Nacua can continue this trend of how he started off, if he can keep that going, it's another threat in offense. So, no, absolutely not. Because I would rather have more talent out there than trade talent, to be honest with you. We can afford to pay Cup. With what we're going to have in terms of cap space next year, we can afford to not trade him. So, no.
Yeah, I think what I've seen from a few analysis is basically saying because they both play the slot wide receiver role, it's going to be impossible to have them both, like we said earlier, on the field at the same time.
But he could allow Cup to rest now, so there's less pressure on Cup to be out there.
I think what they were saying is potentially for a team, you could potentially still get a first round pick for Cup, and for the Rams who are in a sort of a rebuild, if we are in a rebuild, retool, whatever you want to call it, I agree. I think it would be pointless to trade the guy, to be brutally honest. But it's
the other reason, sorry, it'd be pointless to trade him is look at Jalen Ramsey. It'll end up being a case we wouldn't get the first round pick from him. We get something ludicrous and ridiculous, and we'd be all going off a nut at the back office. That's what would happen in reality. Let's be real here. The Cup is absolutely a first round pick. A first round pick if you're trading him away. He is up there. He does merit that. But the way our back office deals with these trades, we wouldn't get what he's owed.
Yeah. It's just interesting now that all of a sudden a lot of analysts are starting to say is,
Yep.
And it's like, well, no. Yeah, I sort of looked at it and went, like you, I was a few seconds like, could we? And I was like, no, actually, no, let's not. But, it's one of them, interesting to see come trade deadline what is going to happen. And, one thing I did say, even before at the start of the year was if we had a losing record, because we see us just trading away picks to basically go for it. But at the moment, it doesn't look like we're going to need to because it looks like potentially we could, be a sleeper playoff team.
Well, yep, and that's what I'm saying, that there's potential there that we could end up with 9 or 10 wins if we're lucky here.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. So moving on, just before we start to wrap up, we're going to start this year. Hopefully, Brent giving you more updates in terms of how fantasy football is going. So there's also various leagues that are tied to us going out there. The official one that we're running, the LA Rams UK Fantasy Football Championship, or as we have finally named it, the Sleep Deprivation Bowl, in honour of all the others we've lost sleep staying up for the Rams or being kept up at night thinking about the Rams. So we have the Sleep Deprivation Bowl. We have got 20 teams playing it, split into 2 conferences, the Vermeil Conference, the McVeigh Conference. It doesn't take up rocket science to work out why we named them that. Within each conference, there's 2 divisions, 5 teams. Isaac Bruce and Marshall Falk division in Vermeil, and the Cup and AD division in the McVeigh Conference. So Andy and I are both in it, along with various other guys, Aaron and Chris from the admin team are also involved in it. Andy, I believe you are in the, if I'm right, the McVeigh conference. You are,
Yeah.
yep, you're in the AD division. So how you got on weeks 1 and 2?
Well, I'm 1-1, so it's. I kind of dropped DeAndre Swift out of my fantasy league week 2 because he'd done nothing week 1. And then week 2, what does he go and do? Balls out, so I've now had to put him back in. So otherwise, I'd have probably been 2-0, and I'd have been quite happy. So, beginning to question why I drafted Kyle Pitts, because as per usual, blood and Falcons don't know how to use them properly. There's a few, but 1-1. So much like the Rams, I'm kind of happy at the moment. I'm not at least last and sucking, but once if I hadn't been so quick to drop somebody, I'd have been walking away as one of the top in the league. So
Well, it's still early. It's still early days, mate. Looking at your conference, the 3 teams are on 2-0, the 4 on 1-1, and 3-0 for 2. Bit different over in the McVeigh, the Vermeil conference. We've got one team that's 2-0, one team that's 0-2, and 8 teams that are 1-1. The entire Marshall Falk division are currently 1-1 at the moment. Only separated basically on point difference.
okay.
Bringing up the rear of that conference is Aaron from the team.
Oh, poor Aaron.
I'm sitting third in the Isaac Griff conference. I'm quite happy with that. As long as I don't come last and then have to come on the podcast and do karaoke, I'm good with that. I'm happy to sit middle of the pack. But yeah, so it's obviously early days. We'll touch upon how things are looking as the season goes on because I said it's 2 10-team conferences. They'll get to the playoffs. We'll go through the usual playoff routes. And then what will happen is we'll have a Vermeil Conference champion and a McVeigh Conference champion. And from those champion games, out of the 2 winners, whoever gets the highest points total out of the 2 of them will be the winner of the inaugural Sleep Deprivation Bowl and be our official fantasy football champion for 2023 and may even receive a little trophy in the post to thank them for taking part. So it's all to play for, folks. We'll keep you posted as the season goes on. And just before we wrap up, just in case if anyone doesn't know, you can now buy us a coffee here at the LA Rams UK podcast. So if you go to that's ko-fi.com/LA Rams UK, if you've got any loose change, you can throw it our way and it will go towards the running podcast as well as our website, which we're keeping up and running, as well as future plans for hopefully some potential giveaways and competitions for you guys. So any loose change, guys, please, if you can, throw it away and we will do our best to keep improving the content and whatnot as we go through this season, which looks like may not be as bad as we initially thought, Andy?
Yeah, we were expecting, you to come back off holiday, us to be, down in the dumps, and it was like, oh my God, what's going on? How are we even going to mention 2 games? It's going to be horrific, and it hasn't been. It's been a real pleasant surprise. I will say a lot of positivity going forward for the team at the moment. That if this is a mid team is our floor with who we've got now, if we can get a little bit more talent in the next draft or so and free agency, potentially we could be as early as next year potentially fighting again in the rank ups of Super Bowl potential teams, and
Absolutely.
This could be a very quick turnaround. Like I say, obviously still early in the season, but signs so far are very positive that this could be a quick turnaround for us all.
Yep, the potential is there for us to have a very solid season, which will set us up extremely well to go at it, but not go at it the way we did the last time, where we mortgage everything off. Go at it like a sensible team. But then again, we're the Rams. We don't do things sensibly here.
I was going to say the word sensible and Sneed aren't in the same dictionary, mate. As soon as he thinks, hang on, we're in it again. Let's go and trade everything away. Just throw the kitchen sink at this one again.
Yep.
potentially that is probably maybe how we're going to have to be, simply because of the market we're in. We are going to have to keep doing this, and we'll see, long term what happens. But like I say, happy so far. Yeah, we don't like losing against the Whiners, but there was a lot of positivity even to take out of that game moving forward.
Not much whining this time, Andy?
Yeah. Not this time. We'll see. But happy. What about you? You happy so far with how the season's gone?
I can't believe I'm saying I'm delighted about how it's been. I think it's because I expected to be absolutely annihilated the first 2 weeks of the season. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how this season develops. I don't think it's going to be all doom and gloom as we all thought it was going to be in pre-season. So I'm optimistic. Don't think we're going to do great things, but we're going to do good things this year, and I'm looking forward to talking about them. But that's about does it for us this evening, folks. We'll catch you guys next week when Andy and I will come back to go over the game against the Bengals, which, fingers crossed, with the way things are looking, will be a win for the Rams. Andy, always a pleasure to talk to you, mate. The Rams. Sorry I didn't get to stay in Greece. For anybody that was following in Discord, it was suggested a whip around was put around to keep me in Greece because obviously, but not being in the UK brought us luck for the Seahawks game. And I did joke and say that if we win against the 49ers, I'm not coming home. And it was suggested a whip around to keep me out of the UK. I mean, I would have taken being at the Villa, permanently, but
yeah, I noticed in the Discord there wasn't much complaining coming from you when it was all suggested. No. You were like, well, okay then, yeah, fine, if I have to. You're twisting my arm, I'll do it.
I know, I'll take one for the team on that. But yeah, that's us, folks. Andy, mate, I'll catch you next week. Thanks for joining me.
Yep, thanks for having us on, mate. As always, lovely to chat with you, and we'll see you next week.
Yep, and we'll catch you next week, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share the hell out of this. If you've got change, buy us a coffee. Get in touch with us with your questions, comments, and all that. We'd love to hear from you guys, and we'll catch you next week. So see you next time, folks, for episode 96 of the LA Rams UK podcast. Catch you all later. Good night.